Welcome to the Your Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
How you doing tonight, Dan?
It's like twinsies. Look at the shirts. You can't really tell what it is. It's supposed to be spotlights.
In
It's hard to make
person,
out.
you can tell.
And then it says, "Oh, brother," and then it says, "Real brothers, real talk." But let me chit chat a little bit here up front. So we're talking about kinds of kindness.
Yeah.
This is a Yorgos Lanthimos film. We're going to talk a lot about the Yorgosphere. This is another one. I feel like I say this at the top of every episode, but this is another one where this was not the episode that we were going to deliver. First of all, we didn't know. We're kind of talking it out and figuring out the idea.
Right.
And then Love Lies Bleeding, I noticed, was streaming, and I kind of wanted to check that out. From when we did a first look on that quite a while back, and you steered me away from
Yeah,
that to
this was newer, so I
it
thought.
was yeah, which we do classics, we do all kinds of,
Right.
movies, but,
But this is
so anyways,
something people listening can go see right now if they stream.
as they can Love Lies Bleeding, same thing.
Yeah, but
So anyways,
again,
let
that
me
was
let me
older.
finish my little setup. I started watching the film. This is now streaming on, is it Max? Is that where it is?
I think so.
I think it's Max, and I don't know, 15, 20 minutes in, I was so angry that you were making us watch this film.
Well,
I was beside myself that I was watching this movie, and I stayed through the whole thing. 2 hours
right.
and 44 minutes,
And I
right?
tried to intervene. You
You
gotta give
did.
me that.
You did, and I knew so here's Mike starts to backpedal once he gets a look at the film.
It's a trilogy,
It's a
sort
trilogy.
of,
It's a
right?
triptych. A triptych.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's 3
anthology.
stories, the same actors playing different characters in each story.
Mhm.
And after the second one, I was like, "We can't do this."
Conceptually, I was in. Conceptually, like, I'm like, "Okay, this sounds interesting, whatever."
Right.
And then I get, like I said, 20 minutes in, and I'm just now, I wasn't sure. All these years we've been doing the podcast, all the episodes we've done, talking about Disney and movies streaming on Disney. Now, we just did Deadpool and Wolverine not that long ago,
Mhm.
and, that was one that was long time anticipated to get into the Disney universe, especially on Disney Plus because of the R rating for Deadpool films. And I now know what the plus in Disney Plus is. It's Disney plus softcore. I finally figured it out. It took me all these years and I figured it out.
Well, you wouldn't have watched this on Disney. Well, so it must be on Hulu.
Hulu, right.
Yeah.
So I watched it through Disney Plus courtesy of Hulu, right.
Okay.
Because there's a tie in there. So
Right.
good for pointing that out. So you're right. Hulu is where, not Max, but Hulu. So
Now
let me go ahead.
to defend my decision,
Mhm.
this is the same director
Did Poor Things.
that did Poor Things, which won Emma Stone her second Oscar.
Yes.
But I got to admit something that's really not good. I tapped out of that. I was
Oh,
watching Poor
okay.
Things, and for people who don't know, it's like The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
They bring Emma Stone back to life,
Mhm.
and all she wants to do is have sex,
Right. Right.
and she's nude half of the film. It's
Mhm.
disturbing.
Right. Right. So, all right, let's not get too deep into that yet. So, Yorgos Lanthimos, right? He's a Greek filmmaker. He co-wrote this with I'm going to try this. Epthemus Philippou. All right, I know I have that right because I heard it pronounced.
Okay.
The cast is starring Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, who we love,
Mhm.
Willem Dafoe, Margaret. Is it Qualley? Margaret Qualley, I think, right? She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the
Yeah.
Tarantino film, and Hong Chow. That's like your main cast of characters. And
Mhm.
as you said, conceptually, it's an interesting idea, right? They play different characters in these three different vignettes,
Right.
basically.
And
So
there's a relationship between each one.
right now, I had not seen Poor Things, and I hadn't seen any other of Yorgos's films, so I wasn't really familiar with his style of filmmaking. because there's more than just what you pointed out. I mean, there's this,
Lobster,
yeah, Lobster, Killing of a
which is a
Sacred
bizarre
Deer,
one. Yes.
etc. So, anyways, there's something in the way the characters speak, right? There's like this stilted dialogue that he's known for.
Mhm.
Um, the way that he shoots, right? The composition that is
You can
kind of
tell it's his
typical.
film.
You can. However, I watched this twice, Mike,
Whoa.
twice, and I've seen Poor Things. And I've seen most of Killing of a Sacred Deer. So I did a
Wow.
dive into his film.
I guess.
And I will say my first pass through this film, as I told you, I was just beside myself the whole time. The dissonant music and that type of speech, everything was like grating on me. It was giving me anxiety watching it.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
I can. I had I think I told you in the email after I watched the first segment, and I wasn't sure whether or not to keep going, and I think I told you, I said, "I think this is a cross between Stanley Kubrick and Wes Anderson." Yet, the humor did not work for me, the dark humor. It was too
No, I
dark.
the things that were intended to be funny weren't.
Correct, except for one exception when Emma Stone does a victory dance in the 3rd film. I thought that was funny.
But that had been shown to death in the
I hadn't
like,
seen it.
oh, I had seen it leading up to the film, and
Yeah, I hadn't
here's
seen
the
it.
I didn't realize, like, if you look, Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness are only 4 months apart in terms of their release
Yes.
date. Poor Things, that came out in February, and that to date worldwide has done about 117.6 million bucks on an estimated budget of about $35 million. But the budget on Kinds of Kindness was about 15 million. Again, it's estimated.
Mhm.
And worldwide, what has it made? 14.7 million. It opened less than $400,000.
I
But
know
it's a
it
very
showed up.
art house kind of film,
Correct, correct, and it showed
you
up
know?
very quick to streaming, which was should have
Right.
been my first hint.
Mhm.
Maybe this isn't a good pick.
It was filmed in Louisiana. And as you said, the three again, it's an anthology, so you get these 3 vignettes that play out. I don't know if you can really I don't think it's we even need to go in and describe each one of them. I think it's really more like thematically, the
Right.
different themes that are being covered throughout. I think that's really what his films are about, right? It's all of these themes that you can relate to,
Mhm.
but he presents them in such a bizarre and absurd, fantastical way, bordering on like Poor Things gets into like some sci-fi fantasy stuff,
Mhm.
with the world building and so forth. So all of the things like we mentioned, the dialogue and the dissonant music, which was Jerskin Fendricks who did the music for Poor Things too. So you got a lot of the same collaborators.
He
Emma
worked he
Stone, of
This is
course,
her 3rd film with him.
and they're already in production on another film
Wow,
called
and
Begonia.
Colin Farrell has worked with him on 2 films, Sacred Deer and Lobster,
Right.
both
Nicole
bizarre
Nicole
films.
Kidman. I mean, he's worked with all
Yeah,
the top
Nicole
talent.
Kidman. Yep.
So, but I went back around and gave it a second watch,
Wow.
and my reaction to it was different. I
Hmm.
hated it less. And here's what was going through because I wanted to make sure I wanted to come back and try to be as objective as I could
Right.
and not just write this guy off because of some what I felt, at least the first go round, and I still believe this, the gratuitous sex
Right.
was just
It was
like
like shock for the sake of shock.
good luck sitting down with any family members and watching this film.
I was gonna say, if we were in any kind of disagreement, I was gonna ask you, would you sit and watch this with your
Now there's
girlfriend?
there's end credits, after each of the
Each
3 films.
segment,
And
yes.
at one point, at the end of the first one, it's like dogs I mean, it's just so out
Well,
of
that was
this.
the second one
Okay, the
where
second one.
Emma Stone admits she comes from a place that dogs are in charge,
Correct.
which control is one of his themes throughout.
She was supposedly stranded on an island, and
Correct.
then she talks about this dream she had, well, I think while she was there about, like you said, the dogs are in charge, and so it sets up
Right.
that kind of metaphor. But I started to think of this, Mike. I started to think of David Mamet. I started to think of Steven Soderbergh, Kubrick, who you mentioned. And the second time through, I thought I had a lot more respect for, like, I'm not going to deny the guy's ability
Mhm.
to, frame a scene and his shot
Right.
composition. And
Or the acting. The acting is I have no problem with the acting.
I got a little problem with, not in this one, not in
Mhm.
this film. I agree
Okay.
with that. So I don't want to deviate too much, but I have to go back to Poor Things, having just seen it.
Right.
Um, Mark Ruffalo was terrible in that movie.
So
Terrible.
and I don't even
Awful.
remember him, that's because I tapped out of it,
Oh, okay. Yeah, he
you
was a main
know?
character in the film, but I came to appreciate that. The music seemed to grate on me a little less. As you said, the acting started to take over because the performances are undeniable,
Yeah, I
you
have no
know,
problem with the performances.
especially, I have to say, we're biased, but again, for me, Plemons
Yeah,
steals the show. In every scene
yeah.
that he's in, he steals the scene.
And he gets his actors to do they have to be uncomfortable filming some of these sequences. Like, I kept thinking about that in Poor Things, how Emma Stone was nude through most of the film,
Right,
and
in like hardcore, I mean, this makes Game of Thrones look like Sesame Street.
yeah, and Plemons wanting to watch, like, self-created and the sexual perversion is another theme.
Well, yeah, he exactly. They're like swapping
Right,
swapping partners and
right.
whatnot. So, and that's the thing. Yorgos deals with a lot of these taboo topics, right?
Right.
He's definitely not afraid to do that. I mean, rape and subjugation, deceit, love,
You
lust.
haven't
You, like,
seen
run down the
Lobster, right?
list. I haven't seen The Lobster, no.
Lobster, the premise is you have 45 days. You go to this retreat
Uh huh.
and you have 45 days to find a mate to get married.
Mm,
If not, you get put in an animal's form,
hmm.
which Colin Farrell picked lobster. So just me saying that sounds bizarre.
Hey everyone, if you love movies, hit that subscribe button and join us for more amazing episodes on the Oh Brother podcast.
Don't miss out.
And don't forget to leave a comment and share with your friends. And you're more into sci-fi fantasy than I am, so
Yeah.
it's interesting that you tapped out of Poor
Yes.
Things,
Yes.
and I stuck it out the entire way
And when
through.
she won, I was like, "Whoa."
And see, I don't get that. I don't get that. That to me is not, now who, I forget who else was up this past year, but
Yeah.
that to me is not an Oscar winning performance.
It
I
didn't
think it's,
seem that to me either.
no, it was,
I thought her performance in this was better
yeah, I agree with that.
than
I
what I
agree with that.
saw, you know?
Yeah.
And there's no denying that this is one of those movies that you think about,
Mhm.
like these themes get in your head and you start thinking through them. And I wrote down like key
Mhm.
relationships, control. There's a
Yeah,
control element,
power.
each one,
Right.
dependence,
Mhm.
sexual perversion,
Mhm.
shock,
Right.
no free will, right?
Yeah.
These characters act like they have no free will. They have to do
Mhm.
in two of them what Willem Dafoe says.
Right. Right.
And the third one's more like a cult film.
I, and speaking of Defoe, I think that would be a reason to stick it out with Poor Things. To me, he's the
Yeah,
best thing about that film. But um, yeah, I was, again, at first I'm like, this is so overly esoteric,
yeah,
self-involved. It just, I'm like, this is a guy that just wanted you to know that he went to film school, and he just regurgitated all the stuff, all the tricks and things he'd learned.
right.
But again, after a second run through, I had a different take on it. I really did. I wasn't
I
as,
couldn't see myself giving this a second run through.
it's, well,
Um,
the material isn't easy to watch for sure.
right.
It's not an uplifting
But some of the
film by
little
any stretch.
connections he made, and again, you really got to pay attention. Like Jesse Plemons has this purple suit in the first leg of this
With the
trilogy.
turtleneck.
Right. and he looks kinda funky, and he had lost weight. You could tell he lost weight, and Willem Dafoe's character says, "You're too thin, you gotta
Lost a
eat."
lot of weight. Yeah.
And then in the 3rd trilogy, that same purple is Emma Stone driving a car, a Mustang.
Mhm.
That's the exact same shade of awkward purple that I don't think exists.
Right, right. Except maybe the Joker's outfit. But,
Yeah.
I was thinking of things like, that was the thing. I'm like, okay, is this avant-garde or have we seen this before? And that's why I listed off all of those things that started coming, like Eyes Wide Shut,
Mhm.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape came to mind,
Right.
which was helping me respect him more in what he did with this film than I did the first time through. Because if you think of, I mentioned this stilted dialogue, this very specific way that his characters speak,
Mhm.
and it can be comical at times. Sex, Lies, and Videotape has a lot of that too.
Right.
You go back and watch that with James Spader and,
But, none of like, Kubrick's film, Eyes Wide Shut, I
Mhm.
consider a great work of art. This, although he steals the music, like, note for note, I swear the piano notes, ding, ding, it was like,
Yeah,
okay, he's
sure.
trying to do Kubrick here. Some of it is just so shocking and offensive just for shock's sake. I just that's how
And
I
that
felt.
Yeah, I don't think it needed to be that vulgar, that gratuitous.
Right.
And
I
and
think he
and,
coulda got these themes across of control and free will
and
without some of the shocking
I don't
stuff.
think I can look at Emma Stone the same way again,
Well,
like in
that's
any
how I
film.
felt when I watched Poor Things. I'm like, "I don't wanna watch any more of this because I like her too
And I
much."
learned 2 things. 2 things. I don't wanna see Willem Dafoe nude, and I don't wanna see him in any sexual situation whatsoever. Like, can I
No.
that if I don't see those 2 things ever again in my life, I'll be a happy camper. But
And burned into my memory is him and Jesse Plemons swapping tongues.
and this is oh god.
That's
And
that says enough right there.
that's not a good match there. That's not a good match. But it's not even sensual or erotic or anything like that. It's just
Right.
crude.
It feels
It's
more
just
like,
crude.
as you said,
Right.
than art, where
Right.
that's the difference with Eyes Wide Shut, is although there's a lot of sex in that, it's not, just for the sake of it. It's to
Yeah.
set up these big
And listen,
themes.
speaking of free will, I mean, Emma Stone, she takes the role or these
Right.
roles and does this. So, but at a certain point, it's kind of like this objectification that is just sort of uncomfortable to bear witness to. I don't know. You know what I thought of too? Again, the first time through, I was making all these notes like this MFer, and I was mad at you, and all these
Right.
feelings I was feeling, which I know is the point, right? I understand
Right.
that's the point.
Right.
It's to this film, all the vignettes are supposed to keep you feeling a bit off balance. Not only the music, but the way he shoots. He shoots up a lot, and it's
And
just the
seeing the
framing is
credits roll after the first one, like 50 minutes, you're like, "Wait a second, are they," and then all of a sudden,
cuts
it's a
right into
harsh
the new.
it's a harsh switch.
Right,
In the
right.
second one, the second film ends so abruptly without any explanation of why he ended it that way.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
just a little bizarre.
maybe this is the point. This is Yorgos's
Right,
point, is to have
right.
this dialogue. But and it's art. Again, it's art, right? So you take from it what you want. But I thought about remember the skit on Saturday Night Live with it was who's the actor from Will and Grace who's on the Smartless podcast with Will Arnett
Oh, I
and
know who you're talking
you
about,
know
and
what I'm
I don't
talking
know
about?
his name.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
terrible. But
yeah.
he's our audience will know who I'm trying to Sean Hayes?
Sean Hayes, that's
Sean
it.
Hayes. It was him, Jimmy Fallon, and Will Ferrell. And they did this skit where Hayes and Fallon were working at this real, this bourgeois kind of boutique or something.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell comes in, and it's just this very kind of overly eccentric situation. And each is trying to outdo the other with their eccentricities or whatever. And at one point, Will Ferrell pulls out a cell phone. It's like a Tic Tac, and
Yeah, I
he
remember
oh,
that.
it's a flip phone, and he oh
They
my god,
work at a clothing
they
store in
work
the
at a clothing
skit.
store,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
it just that the vibe of that is what this was making me think. Like this guy is just trying to show, hey, look what I can do as a
Right,
filmmaker.
right.
But again, I felt
And
much
there's
different
something to be
seeing it
said
again.
when the quality of acting
Mm.
is so good and so
Yeah,
big.
but he
Why
is a
are they
good
doing this?
he is a good filmmaker though. I mean, he really and I don't, if it's borrowed from that's there's no
Now,
originality anymore. Everybody's influenced
Lobster
by somebody.
Lobster, you could say it's not original because there was another film, Walrus, which was very
Mhm.
similar, where
I
the
didn't see
main
that.
character transforms into a walrus. Lobster, I see the humor in Colin Farrell's performance.
Mhm.
Here, I didn't get it.
Mhm.
And again, I thought he was
It
just
well, I think well, I don't know. I because I haven't seen that particular film, but I think it's this juxtaposition, right? This it's so dark the material in most of these films that you're not really expecting humor. It kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, "Am I supposed to laugh at this?
right,
And am I
right.
not supposed to laugh at this?" So,
Like,
uh,
Emma Stone feels like, she resolved her conflict and goes into this victory dance a little
mhm.
premature, but and then the
Right,
guy did you
right.
watch after the end credits? Because there's a character, I know I wrote his name down, RMF,
Yeah,
the character that has his
the
monogram.
older guy,
Right. At
right?
the very end, they're all titled with him in it, like RMF flies, RMF eats, and then
Yeah,
the last one, after it finishes, if you wait for the credits, he's, like, at this taco stand and
right. I saw it. Yeah, he drips like some sauce
right,
on his
and
shirt or something.
he almost, like, squirts it on himself on purpose.
Again, it's the absurdity of again the juxtaposition, right, of what we just witnessed
Right.
with this very kind of inane sort of like the guy's just sitting there
Humorous
having a
moment,
taco. Yeah,
but I think you said the perfect word. I think he was going after absurdity, just
sure.
for absurdity's sake,
I
and
did
that
I did like he has some of the cast that he has. I get the impression that these are folks that haven't been acting long or maybe haven't acted at all in some cases, or they're just that good where there's this real strong sense of realism
mhm,
in these characters. There's a bartender in one of the vignettes that Jesse Plemons keeps going to.
mhm.
And there's just something about the way the performance that that actor delivers. It's
Yeah,
so natural and so
yes,
and I think that it grounds the film when everything around it is, like you said, so absurd.
right,
It's just it's a very again, I
and we
think
don't know what that
Mhm.
bartender is going to do, whether he's gonna do what Plemons says or deny him. Again, the control
Or do what
factors.
Willem Dafoe has told him to do when
Correct,
Plemons shows up,
correct.
right?
Like, the
Now
first one, Willem Dafoe's clearly a narcissist and
Mhm.
wants to control everything from what he eats to when he
Right.
has sex to everything.
Mhm. Yeah. To the point that he writes it down. Okay, at 7:30, have sex with your wife. At
And he
9 o'clock.
grills Plemons
Yeah.
on, "Did you do this then? Did you do this then?" And
Right.
if Plemons gives the wrong answer, he goes in the doghouse.
Right. Which none of that means anything except to support the themes that Yorgos is trying to get across. So
Right.
I now I don't know what we make of this, but I want to get you. We always bring this up, so I want to get your take on it. But IMDb,
Mhm.
as of right now, this has a Metascore of 64. Where
It
do you
feels
land
a
with
little
that?
high for me.
Feels high.
It
Okay.
feels a little high because, honestly, if I didn't tell you to watch it, I would have never brought it up. I would have never even said so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say after watching it, I wouldn't say, "Hey, check this out."
And I was so angry that by the time you sent me the email going, "Hey, I think maybe we should not
Pivot.
perhaps do,"
Yeah,
and I was like, I'm in. I'm already
right.
halfway
I could
through. This is
tell. I was like,
yeah.
"You finished it?" Because I hadn't finished the 3rd vignette,
Yeah, I was done. I was done.
and
But
you had wrote back that "I'm done." I was like, Oh,
Yeah, I said I already
no.
watched the film.
But
Right.
you didn't let on
No.
how
You
you
know,
felt about
I'm
it,
good
so
at
I was
that.
like,
I'm
"Well,
good at
maybe
that.
he liked it." I
Yeah, I'm
I
good.
don't
Well
know.
look it. I had a second
I can't
uh,
believe you watched it a second time. I
I
don't think I
did, I
could
did.
take a second watching,
I think you should at some point go back to it.
other
I
than
think
to
you
pick
should.
up on some of the things like the purple suit and the things that if you juxtapose put them in juxtaposition,
Right.
compare the 2.
Now, the nudity and the sexual content in this, I didn't find it as bothersome, and we're no prudes, but I
Right.
didn't find it as bothersome as Poor Things was just too much. It's just too much.
Well,
Too
there's
much.
the one scene, there's a rape scene in it,
Mhm.
which bothered
Well,
me.
that's true. That's right. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was really disturbing.
that was very
Really disturbing.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and, it was a husband,
That's
but
right.
her
That's right.
wife belongs to this cult, so
And
she follows their rules.
he played it out very well because, you don't really know, up until that you're like, is this
Yeah,
is he doing what I think he's doing? And that's Joe Alwyn, who again, he's in all 3 vignettes as different characters. He plays
right.
her husband in that one, but, the guy that you're talking about, that RMF that's in every
Yes.
his first name is Yorgos as well, so he must be a
Funny.
fellow, from Greece, I guess. But so the Rotten Tomatoes, again, we don't give that as much
Right.
weight, but the critics have it at 72%, which
Wow.
is more where I am now at the second
Okay.
look.
Wow.
The the popcorn meter, formerly known as the audience score, 48%.
See,
And that's
that feels
probably where
right.
you are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because let me ask you, would you recommend this film?
It
See,
depends on who it was. It depends on
that's
who
what
it
the
was.
score does for me. If
I
it's below a 5,
yeah.
I'm not gonna recommend it.
I would with a disclaimer, right? Because I think if it's somebody I know who appreciates filmmaking,
Right.
then I think I would, right? If it's a more of a casual moviegoer, I no, I don't think I'm going. And
And
certainly
he
not if
has
watch it with the family. Please don't do that.
yeah, right. Don't get the wife and kids up and say, "Hey,"
No,
'cause
right,
the title's deceiving.
right,
Signs of
right.
kindness.
Yeah,
I'm
Dad,
like, "Well,
what does
this
he
is gonna
mean?
be
What does he
funny."
mean she's not contaminated anymore? But I have to say, I have more respect for him as a filmmaker now, but that's not again, I still have a problem with his what I think is an overuse of the sex.
And the shock factor.
Yeah, it's just it was crude. It was
But,
crude.
it's bizarre when you did the money figures. I think Poor
Mhm.
Things did the money because Emma Stone won the Oscar. I
Oh,
would
you
like
think
to
that
look
was
at
a
that.
mm.
That was a catalyst for people to watch it.
Do you think a
But
lot of the earnings was post Academy Awards?
that's I will go back and look at that
That's interesting,
because
yeah.
I think it must be because
Check
look at his this film, Kinds of
mm,
Kindness, right? Same
yeah.
director, same cast,
But it's
it didn't
also
make any money.
but, as you said, it also was in the theater, for a very short time. So
Right, but
you
there's gotta be a reason for that. Although, how long was Poor Things in the
well,
theater?
but the budget, it's not a big budget film, right? So you're talking, quite a different it's like Poor Things was twice the budget of this.
Yeah,
So I it might not have intended to be anything but like I said, a little art housey film, and then it goes right to streaming,
right.
you know?
And fans of his, it's more of the same, right? It's more of the
Sure,
absurd, it's more of the
sure,
crazy.
sure.
So
Yep.
maybe they're gonna like it, but I cannot recommend it.
And The Killing of a Sacred Deer so far I'm enjoying. It reminds me it has like the Ice Storm vibe to it,
Yeah,
which we love, that
I
film.
haven't finished that one either. I That's the one with Nicole Kidman in it
Right, and Colin Farrell again, and
and
and,
Colin Farrell.
Barry Keegan, who's in
That's
that as
right,
well.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So you can see where that would be a little lighter.
A little bit, but it doesn't take long to look and say, "Yeah, this is one of his films." Like you said, he's
Right.
got his own even though he's probably it's an amalgamation of different influences, right?
Yeah.
As everything is at this point, um But I
If
he
you're
is a
if
good
you're s
filmmaker.
if you're super open-minded and I've mentioned all the themes I think that are relevant,
Yeah.
and you wanna see something with those themes, maybe
I
check
know
it out. Otherwise, I gotta say pass.
I know people that are very open-minded who've seen this, and they have the same feeling. They were
Okay.
kind of bothered by the same stuff.
It's disturbing. I mean, it's disturbing that
It
Jesse
is.
Plemons
Yeah.
is mourning his wife being lost and wants to watch a sex tape where they switch partners. I mean, that's bizarre
It is bizarre.
just to be bizarre.
Right. Right. But again, that's the point here, right? So you could say he is doing things. I mean, do we what other filmmakers can you name off the top of your head that are presenting content in this kind of way right now?
Yeah, no, he's definitely a
Not that he's the only
unique
one, but yeah.
yeah, he's a unique director that people who like him are gonna like this probably because it's
Mhm.
shot well, it's well acted.
I would
Um,
like to see what else he can do. Like, I'll go back a little further into his resume, but
yeah,
because Killing of a Sacred Deer seems like a little bit now that's prior to that's like 2017 or something. But
right.
so I would like to see like this Begonia, I think is if I can pull it up, it's let
Is
me
that the
see.
one that's coming?
Yes, it's in
And Emma Stone is
production.
in that again.
Yeah, here it
She's
says
gotta really trust him as a
Begonia
filmmaker
2. Oh, she does. She said as much in
because she
interviews.
puts
Yeah.
herself
They
in
have
these
a
really difficult spots.
kind of a second hand. Two conspiracy obsessed young men kidnap the high powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she's an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. That might be more up your alley.
Maybe.
That description.
It's more sci-fi-ish,
She must be the corporate CEO that, in that
obviously,
film.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else to say about Kinds of Kindness? I think we've
I
said
would say
mostly.
listen to us, we're trying to be kind, don't watch this.
This is a kind of kindness to this film. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit of a backward kindness. So you don't recommend it at all?
I might recommend it to people who are real art house people, but then again,
Yeah.
film noir is art house. That's what I think of as art house.
Mhm.
This is just so bizarre.
Okay, but think about some of the scenes from The Shining. Think about
Right.
there's certainly.
But nothing that shocked me to the sense that this did. Nothing that I
Yeah,
looked at and was like, "Oh,"
right,
like Poor
right.
Things. I did not wanna see Emma Stone nude all the time.
I tell you, that one is a lot harder to hang with than
Yeah.
this. This is an easy watch compared to that.
Wow. That
Yeah,
makes
like
me think I made the right choice.
I mean, this really I could watch this a third time, no problem.
And
No
I don't
problem.
know, how do you win the Oscar in a film like that?
That I don't know. I really don't. And again,
I
Willem
love
Dafoe
Emma
was
Stone. She's great.
she's great, yeah, but Willem Dafoe was the best thing about that film. He
Yeah.
gave a really solid performance in that. But yeah, it's not
He
an
was
easy
like
watch.
the Doctor Frankenstein character.
So, yes, correct. So, tell us what you guys think. If you've seen this film,
Right.
drop some comments in the
And if you
video.
see it because of us, don't send us hate.
You correct. Again, I'm recommending it with a disclaimer, little caveat that,
Right.
if you're like Mike said, you got an open mind, you're not easily offended,
Right.
and you're a cinephile, then this is going to be probably something you want to check out if you haven't seen it
Yeah, I
already. But
think the Metascore, there was some pretty high scores. I just
64, yeah,
glanced at it, but
yeah,
to get to 64, it needed some 80s and 90s,
hmm, yeah,
but
yeah,
I can't in good conscience recommend this film.
yeah. All right. Well, it's a bit of a split decision, but you can't say I didn't give it a fair shake.
Oh, man, I
I
can't
gave it a
believe
fair
you
shake.
rewatched.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think now that you have and appreciate certain things, I think you'll like Lobster for the
Mhm.
humor.
I'm enjoying Killing of a Sacred Deer so far. I'm liking that
Yeah,
one. So I'm looking forward to finishing that one off. But well, there you go. Nothing else to say about that one. So there you go. Kinds of kindness. For those of you that are not currently following us, what are you doing? Why are you not following us?
please. Is it
Yeah,
Dan's language?
make sure that you do. You won't find any nudity at the O Brother website. Not anymore. We cleaned that up, but go
Well,
out to the official Oh Brother website, which is OHB as in brother podcast.com. OHBpodcast.com.
you notice something about my mug, Dan?
I can't see it. Put it up to the camera.
I'm just looking at that
Oh,
part of
looking
it.
inside it, you mean?
Well, it's dark. I don't have red
Oh, that's right.
because
Oh, Mike's got yeah, that's too early. But okay, so you can follow us on Instagram as well at OHB as in brother podcast at OHB podcast, and on YouTube we are at Oh Brother Podcast. That's our handle on YouTube. Just look for the logo that you see up there in the corner of the screen. We would really appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel, like our videos, helps us get the show out to more and more people. Yeah, we really appreciate the support that we've received so far from folks, and we've hit a milestone recently, but we're not done. We're hoping to keep growing things. So, yeah, but appreciate all the support. Shout out to our friend Paul. He's been a devoted supporter for some time now, by way of the Rexer show.
that's right.
Couple of our buddies there. So a tip of the Oh Brother mug to the boys.
Yep.
But that's going to do it for another episode of the Oh Brother podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.